Like, I have no doubt in my mind right now that life is a trap. It's all one big trap. Like, maybe it's just living in Toronto, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's just life in general. Like, I just left my full-time salary job because as a social service worker, I make nothing. Which that's a whole other conversation of like how that makes sense at all. But I just wasn't making enough, but I was working very, very hard. And there was a lot of details at that job that meant that I couldn't necessarily work another job if I needed to. So I left. I started a new job, still in social service work, as a mental health support worker, and it's part time. I'm still not making any money, but I was like, you know what? It's fine. I have a bunch of options for like side gigs. I'll just do some side gigs to supplement my income. But here's the thing. Like I said, I am so exhausted from just existing at this point that, you know, picking up shifts at the side gigs takes everything in me. I can do it, but at the same time, it's like my mental health is getting affected by how tired I am and how many different jobs I have to juggle in order to literally just survive. And then, you know, you see all over TikTok and the internet of like, here's ways you can make passive income and fast money, blah, 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 blah. Those all take work. Like, none of it is easy. None of it is really like making money in your sleep. Like, all of it takes so much work. And how am I supposed to balance that with my part-time job and all my other side gigs? And then, oh, there's the loans, right? Because they will really tell you, oh, you know, you need emergency money. You can't make your rent this month, whatever. Take out a loan. So you take out a loan, but then you're paying so much money back to them every month that you now never, ever have enough money for anything outside of necessities.
Okay, let's just go ahead and pause it back here for just a quick second so we can see her. All right. First off, happy Wednesday evening. Looking, it's about 8:30, I think it is, right around there. This probably be load up around 9:30. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. If you were not here yesterday, I uploaded a thing on unemployed felons. That will be at the end of the video for you. So you'll have to scroll past the quiet room, just hit fast forward, and you'll see that. Also, for those of you who just need that silent time this evening, you can go into the quiet room, just hit fast forward, go into the very next chapter, and you can hear tonight's TikToks, and you can hear it amongst the meditation music and celestial stars and all of that stuff. So this is your scene. If for those who are just like, I need silence. It's okay. My feelings are not hurt. I promise. All I ask is that perhaps maybe you come visit the social room again because I'd love to have you here. Okay. Now then, being a Gen Xer on this young lady, I've taken a lot of notes. Okay. So those of you who are new, if I'm ever looking down or something, it's because I'm writing. I try to stop the TikToks as much as possible. I try to not stop them as much as possible. Don't count on it happening very often. That's why we have the quiet room. Okay. So I'm going to just bring up some observations. And I don't want this to be a generational thing. It's the Gen Xers against the Gen Zs. It should not be like that. However, there are some things that I've observed that I'd like to point out. And actually, there are several things. So let's hit it. Okay. First off, I believe she jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. I'm just writing on my notepad. I had a lot of notes. That was for this one TikTok. Okay. Um, she basically jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. So let's take a look at what she does. She's a social service worker. Right there, off the bat, we know it is a broke income. And as a matter of fact, it may even be worse than teaching. Yeah, I'm thinking social service work. I might be wrong. Okay, I make about 63,000 after 19 years of teaching. So I guess social services teaching are probably really, really close. Although, believe it or not, I think social service work, you almost need a master's degree, even more in social service counseling work than you do in education. That's just an observation. Okay. So she says she's making nothing social service work. She's right. She's probably not making a whole lot. Now, here's the part that struck me and why I say she jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. I believe there's a chapter in that on The Hobbit, okay, from the frying pan to the fire. She says she left this full time social service job because it was stressful. It was, just mentally stressing her out, yada, yada. And she said the amount of work that they required her to do was just too much. Now, I'm going to be really I'm going to try hard to be sensitive in the sense that I'm not going to stereotype her and say, oh my God, here's another Gen Z who thinks that everything's supposed to be handed to them. But if I may say, just an ounce of reality here, sweetheart, meaning the TikToker, guess what? Every job is going to probably kick your ass. Every job that you want to have pay you something. Now, in social service work, you don't get paid a lot, but you kind of know that going into it. Just like me being a teacher. I know, okay? I knew that going into it. It's also why I sought public service loan forgiveness. Okay. Got that 110 taken care of in 2022. But she says the job was just too much and she wasn't making anything. Part of what you need to do before you take on a career that I'm sure you have a degree for, okay? You would have to have a degree for it. You can't do it without one. Is you would have an idea as to what it's going to pay you. And again, just like as a teacher, I knew what it was going to pay. It's, the pay's kind of sucky. Now, the cool part is teachers get pensions, but you have to stay a really long time. You have to make it a full-blown career to get the pension. I always say a lot of public social jobs, they pay off in the end, but you got to be able to put in 25, 30 years. And in corporate jobs, or more private sector jobs, so to speak, they pay at the beginning, but you may have to deal with a lot more of layoffs, volatility, So if you go into, well, what used to be federal, but I would say military is pretty stable as far as I know at this time. So she says she didn't like the pay. So what does she do with that full-time job? She quits the full-time job. Now that doesn't make sense. Quitting the full-time job that you have simply because you don't like the volume of work. What job do you think you're going to get that doesn't have you do a whole lot of work and still pay you also? If teachers actually got paid for the amount of work we did, and I'm concluding administrators too, because a lot of people forget administrators were teachers before they became administrators. Okay. So everybody in the education realm, I should say, education, we all work extra hours. Everybody does. So part of what Gen X and the boomers probably look at, a lot of the Gen Z people, okay, I'm not going to stereotype her. I'm treading very carefully on that. But a lot of it is, do you think these jobs you're going to do is strictly going to be 40 hours a week? And I'm assuming her job was salaried because she's still in social service. So, and from the way she's describing it, typically these jobs are salaried. You're going to do extra hours. So she quits this job because she said it was taxing her too much mentally. And what is she, all of 24, 25? Hey, something to think about, guys. Some of you got to get some thicker skin under your belt. And I'm not saying this is everybody in the Gen Z. Okay. This is not Attack Gen Z night. Trust me, it's not. Okay. I'm really addressing her situation. You got to get tougher skin. She needs. I'm not saying you directly, but I'm talking about this TikToker. Sometimes, and this is something I know the older millennials and the Gen X's and the boomers would probably say is, man, some of you younger people, you fold at the first sign of this is just too much. That's it. I'm done. Life is over. And I am listening to stories of people who aren't even in their 30s yet claiming that they are so stressed out. And part of me has to go, is this from the Amazon generation? If it doesn't come right now, if it doesn't come at the push of a button, if it doesn't come as easy. I mean, you've never had to wait 3 weeks to get a package. You've never had to sit by a telephone all day and wait for the call because there was no such thing as portable phones. When the repair person was coming and they said, we're going to call you, there weren't even pagers. You literally sat at home all day, okay, waiting for them to call or to show up. So there's, in my opinion, what I see probably more times than I'd like to count are a lot of young people. I mean, you're folding. I mean, if this were if this was Texas Hold'em, You'd be going fold. That's a great game, by the way. If you've never played Texas Hold'em, I absolutely love that game. Can play it for hours. But literally, you'd be like, fold. That's it. I'm done. Meanwhile, I'm looking at your age. You're like 27. I'm thinking you're not even barely 10 years out of high school, and you're so stressed out. Now, I understand that there are people who will say, but the economy is really bad. They're stressed out. Guys, there ain't a generation that won't say at some point the economy didn't suck. All right. So I don't think, and I'm being sensitive here, okay? I don't think we can always just turn and say, yep, it's the economy. That's what's stressing all the young people out. And the only reason I'm saying Gen Z is that would be the age that would be out of college, starting the workforce, yada, yada. Okay. Some Gen Zs might still be in college getting ready to start, but basically that's the age that's now working. We can't just all attribute it to, yes, the price of eggs is really high and cars are overpriced, and that's what's causing it. Granted, I will give that rent sucks. Rent prices are real high, but guess what, folks? You just may have to have a roommate. And, in a lot of countries, people live with roommates. Lots and lots of countries. Lots of countries, people live with 3-4 generations under the same roof. Now, I understand we're not in those countries, okay? But what I am saying is, I think in many ways, many Americans, and I will count myself as one, okay? I'm going to throw myself in there. We are a bit entitled feeling. We should have our own place at all times, unless it's the love of our life or someone that we wish to live with, whether it's a family member we choose to live with, whatever. Basically, unless it's a cohabitating relationship of our choice, whether we live with our parent, a sibling, whatever. If we did not voluntarily ask for that arrangement, we believe we are entitled to live alone. Guess what, young people? You may have to accept having a roommate, and that may be a new trend. At least having a roommate until you either make more money on your own, get married, whatever. Here is the thing. We cannot say, this young lady saying that she's so stressed out, she can't possibly do anything else. So what does she do? And why I said jumping out of the fire into the frying pan. She goes, oh, I'm going to quit my job right there. Okay. We got a gal who's probably, I'm telling you, she ain't even in her 30s. Okay. And she's already claiming she's so stressed out, she's got to quit her full-time job. You know what some people want? Some people just want an excuse to quit a job. So the excuse becomes, I'm so stressed out. I'm sorry. I'm going to be really honest. How stressed out can you be 9 years after high school is out? Most of you aren't even married at this point. A lot of you don't have kids at this point. Not saying all of you. Okay. But sometimes I think, and I'm thinking in this particular TikToker's case, part of the problem is that she's absolutely stressed out. And so she quits her job. But I really do question if part of that I'm stressed out was just the excuse to quit her job. It could be. So she says she quits it, and what does she do? According to the notes that I have, she goes on and she takes on part-time jobs. She takes on part-time jobs and a bunch of side gigs. Now, I don't know about you. It seems to me that it is more beneficial in the long run financially to stay with one organization, possibly work your way up either financially, either up the authority leadership line, either perhaps if she says she was in social services, there's a very good chance it was a public job, which possibly came with 401k pension. Yes. Okay. These social services. I would think it would be smarter to stay in the same job and work your way up, or at least have stayed there for a while. And I don't gather she stayed there very long. I don't remember how long she said she stayed, but I can pretty much bet it wasn't years and years. And she goes, no, she goes, I'm going to quit that. And I'm going to basically do a bunch of side gigs. So then she goes and she does these side gigs. Look, I'm not trying to be critical, but I am looking at it critically. Okay. So she quits that full-time job. She does a bunch of side gigs. And then she talks about how difficult these side gigs are. Well, yeah, sometimes it's better to deal with one big ball of yarn and tend to that than it is to go, you know what? I don't like that big ball of yarn. So I'm going to go, find a bunch of balls of yarn. So now you got all these different balls of yarn, hitting you. So she says she doesn't like that full-time job, gets the side gigs. I think that's the word she said. She gets all these side gigs. But what's the one thing that shocks her? She goes, "Oh my God, to make money is super, super hard." Yes. And it can be even harder when you're trying to juggle a whole bunch of side gigs. Before, you only had to juggle one job, do it well, put in some extra time. Yeah, you're going to have to put in some extra time. I mean, teachers put in extra time. Lots of people put in extra time at their job. Now you've got to find a work-life balance. I give credit to that. But come on, Missy. Okay. You probably ain't even 30 yet. All right. So she says it's really hard, and she's really shocked at how the money, that the side gig money, is harder to make. And the passive income is like, oh my God, I really have to work. Yes. See, this is a critical or criticism that older people tend to have of the younger people. Now, I am sure that when I was younger, somebody older was looking at me going, "Oh man, those Gen X people, they are so lazy. They walk around with their Walkman all day. Don't they realize there was a time when we didn't have TV and a radio?" Yeah, we did. So I'm sure this is generationally passed down. So if I were a Gen Z, okay, take the criticism itself with a grain of salt, but take the observations somewhat seriously. Because if you really, really are going to quit a job every time you feel an ounce of stress, you're going to have a hard time holding a job. And what she's finding out is all the things that are promised. And I'm sure she went to TikTok and YouTube University. Okay. And oh my goodness, passive income. You can rent out your car really, really cheap and easy. You can drive Uber. You can do Lyft. Better yet, you can flip real estate. Just get yourself into a whole lot of debt. It's good debt because you're trying to make income. And she realizes this is really hard. Yeah. And so I don't see the logic, and I don't see where the stress was saved by quitting her full-time job. Some of you young people, not all of you, but some of you really, really need to get thicker skin, and you need to really understand about sticking to a job. Now, I'm fine. Go ahead and put in the comments and just say, I'm older and outdated and I don't understand. Yeah, I do understand. And if you don't believe me, even at this age, okay, I've stayed. Now, I love my school a lot, but I still stayed at the same school for 16 years until I got public service loan forgiveness, because I saw the bigger picture. And I think what sometimes happens, perhaps in her case, I don't think she saw the bigger picture of staying at the same job and juggling that one job and getting a name for yourself. See, that's the other thing. When you job hop, you don't get a name for yourself. You don't garner credibility in an industry. Okay. I have a very good reputation as a teacher. At least I like to think I do. But imagine if I had gone after, a year, now I know I don't want to be a teacher. And then I go and I do this job, and then I go do that job, and I job hop and job hop. And let's say I do that for 5 years. And instead of just sticking to being a teacher, instead of becoming a teacher with 5 years solid experience, I've just become a gig worker with, what is a jack of all trades that really knows nothing. Don't worry, you can poke a lot of holes in my argument too. You really could. But what I will say is, to someone like her, okay, unless you are truly under what I consider doctor care, medical care, okay, I think some young people jump too quickly to say this is damaging their mental health. I am not in any way denying or dismissing mental health. Trust me. And my closest friends know. Okay. And longtime viewers know I am not denying mental health in any way. But what I am saying is, if you want to not be 30, 35 years old with absolutely no work skills under your belt other than I've Grubhubbed and Uber and I've hopped from job to job, if you want to establish some sort of credibility in an industry or something, you're going to have to get some thicker skin. You're going to have to stay in the game a lot longer. And you're going to have to learn to deal with the conflicts and the problems that come up in that job. And I suspect that's a lot of reason a lot of young people quit these jobs. They haven't been taught conflict skills. And how do I partly suspect that? Look at social media. everything is in a 2-3 text message. I mean, you can literally go out to dinner and watch the whole family and everybody's on their cell phone. So how do you learn to deal with the boss face to face at work when they don't like what you've done? How do you learn to deal with the coworker when you've got a little tiff going on between you? How much of it is, oh my God, I'm really mentally health stressed out at the job? And how much of it is, I just don't have good people skills. I never learned how to do it. I spent my life on a cell phone. Things to consider before we jump and say, yep, it's a mental health issue. Yep, it's mandatory for me to quit my job. And also a sign of maturity is not quitting your job. Not quitting your job until you have something to go to. And it's very clear she did not have something to go to. So anyways, she was talking about how tired she is doing all these. She goes, how tired she is having this many number of jobs. So you left the one job you had so you could go juggle a whole bunch of different jobs. Again, I'm not trying to be mean, but I am being critical to say, okay, where might this have been managed better? And I think the way it could have been managed better is she stayed at that job, put in a few years, get a name for yourself, get a reputation for yourself that's positive within that social services industry, and then move on to another social services industry. And here's the other problem. Also, when you leave a job like that, okay, I don't know how social services works, okay, but your skills start to get old, okay? Your skills start to, what is it they say? You can be like 2 years out of the workforce and it actually starts to damage you. So somebody else, and I always say this, I tell this to my students, my middle school students, somebody wants the job more than you. Somebody is willing to put in the extra hours more than you are. Does that mean you need to go and work 70 hours a week for a 40-hour week job? Absolutely not. And I would think that is crazy. But I will tell you this, when I worked in insurance in my 30s, I was paid 40 hours a week. I probably worked closer to 55. And I had severe mental health issues and I was on medication, the whole 9 yards, and I still stuck it through. So when I say, I think some young people claim mental health too quickly, me oftentimes thinks it's the excuse for I haven't built the people skills. Because without the people skills, we're going to deal with conflict. And I suspect in this case, there was lack of communication and conflict. And the other way I suspect it is, okay, let's say she really was having those problems with this job. Did she sit down and talk with a supervisor and clarify what the problem was? In other words, how much effort was really made to stay on the job? And I'm talking real effort. I'm not talking, yeah, I talked to my boss. Meanwhile, your ears were all closed off and you didn't like what your boss had to say because you don't like authority. See, people have to be so careful before they throw everything at mental health. And I think we need to be very careful on that. And yes, young people do get stressed out. Yes, young people do get overworked. But guess what? It's part of growing up. It's just part of growing up. It's part of the price paid into adulthood. That does not mean you should be used and abused at your job. And that's, the only way to make it into adulthood. But at some point, you have to come and you have to understand that, look, life is not Amazon delivery. It does, all problems don't get solved overnight. And sometimes if you're able to look at the bigger picture as to why you're there and why you're doing what you're doing, it'll help sustain you until you can get to a better spot. But just stopping and saying, I quit my job, I don't like it, I'm being mentally abused, whatever, the end. Well, guess what? You're going to find that in every job. And how can I prove it? Because she's already complaining about the jobs she went to. She's already complaining about, the different side gigs. So in other words, I would ask her, what young lady would actually make you happy? Oh, I know what would make her happy. She would like a job that she doesn't have to work very hard, that pays a lot of money and doesn't require more than maybe 45 hours a week. And let me tell you something, if she knows where that job is, there's going to be a whole line of people waiting for her.
Loan. So you take out a loan, but then you're paying so much money back to them every month that you now never, ever have enough money for anything outside of necessities.
Well, actually, you can have money as long as you don't take out a loan.
Do you want to live in a world where an artist can make a living making art? Yeah, of course you do. Well, here's the deal. Poor people, on average, do not spend money on original works of art. No, it's wealthy people that do that. So if you want to live in a world where an artist can make a living doing art, then you need to make sure that you are working and voting for a world where the majority of us have extra cash. Because right now, when we are getting nickeled and dimed and taxed out the wazoo, nobody's got any money left over for art. Nah, we're putting all that towards groceries. And our artists are going to have to go work stocking the shelves at that grocery store. Because you see, art is the unnecessary necessity. We don't need it to survive, but we definitely need it to thrive.
But the only way we can thrive is to first have our survival needs met. And I'll tell you this, like they say, there's a reason they call it the starving artist. And it's sad because, of course, that falls under liberal arts. And let's get real here, folks. Okay, as much as we do tend to slam the liberal arts, I was a journalism major in the 80s. Today, I would never major in journalism. Forget it. I would never do it. Okay, but if you think about it, we go to everything liberal artsy when we want to relax, when we want to entertain, when we want to be entertained, when we want visual things to look at, like at a museum. Nobody ever goes, I am so stressed out. I've just had the hardest day and I need to go home and I need to look at some math equations to make myself feel better. No, we don't do that. We go, I'm so stressed out. I want to go play a meditation tape. And we need somebody who's really good at making meditation tapes to do that. Oh, gee, isn't that the arts? I'm so stressed out. I need a vacation. You know what? I think I'm going to go visit a favorite museum of mine and ponder life as I know it as I look at sculptures and paintings. Personally, museums bore the heck out of me. I'm the type of person that when you walk into a museum, okay, you got that person in the museum, right? And there's that one person that can stand there. They can look at a blank piece of white paper with probably a black dot in the middle, and they will ponder life as they know it. And they will come up with all sorts of visuals and creative questions like, now, why do you think the artist did this? I remember I had to take one art type history class in college. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. I'm the type, I will walk the room and go, well, I've seen this, I've seen that, and I've seen this, and I'm out. Don't take me to a museum, even to the 16th chapel. I would probably just look at it and go, yeah, looks like the picture book's all right. But the bottom line is, it's the liberal arts things that we tend to go towards. I mean, let's face it, it's Christmas, right? For those of you who celebrate Christmas, and you decide you're going to take your family where? Oh, you're going to take your family to the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker's okay. I mean, I like it stuff, but I'm not really big into ballet, but follow my point here. That's where we go. We go to where the arts are, whether it's music, dance, picture. But yet we slam the arts at the same time because it doesn't do what? Make money. It's like we want to have our cake and eat it too. Well, we only want to focus on the STEM stuff and the stuff that actually makes us money. But at the same time, when I want to relax, bring in the art. But we don't want to pay for it. Kind of like we want the best teachers possible, and we would like all our teachers to have 2-3 degrees if possible, but we don't want to pay the teachers all that much. But when we need a teacher, we'd like the best educated teacher. This is why I have no guilt over public service loan forgiveness. I think every single teacher should have it, period.
Do you want to live in a world where
I live in my car, and here's how much money I saved by not paying rent. My old apartment cost me $1,800 per month with utilities. I live 9 months out of the year in my car and 3 months leeching and crashing at friends or family. So 9 times 1,800 is $16,200.
All right. So this guy here who's leeching and crashing at his family, okay, here is the only gripe that I have. I think it's wonderful. If he feels safe, sleep in his car, sleep away. But he spends 3 months, quote, leeching. Yes. Here is the problem I have. You may not wish to support a brick and mortar place. You're happy living in your car. But the problem that I have is oftentimes those same people need you to pay for a brick and mortar place. So when they want to leech off you, you're available. In other words, this reminds me of a time when I was in my very early 20s. I was a college student, and this guy that I went on, literally, I think we went on 2-3 dates, and that was it. And here's why. I'm from Portland. Portland is very green state and, very liberal, all that stuff, right? And they're into, nature and conservation. Wonderful. Okay. And he actually bragged about how he did not drive a car. And why did he not drive a car? Because a car pollutes things and he wasn't going to pay for all that pollution and too many cars on the road. And I was like, bravo, yay, snaps for him, right? And then we went on a date together, and guess what the problem was? He needed someone to pick him up. Oh, so who had a car? I had the car. And then we went to dinner. And who had the car for dinner? I had the car. I will tell you this. And I was only like, I was a college student, so I figure I was like 19, 20. And I was like, I ain't doing this. You're claiming that you are being this awesome conservationist. You're doing this to save all this money. But yet when you need something, you expect me to maintain, I mean, not directly, but indirectly, I need someone else to maintain auto insurance, a car, gas, repairs. So when I get together with you, I can use your resources, but then I can claim that, hey, I'm a great conservationist. I didn't fall for that baloney. See, I would have respected him more if he had just said, look, my ass is broke. I can't afford anything. Can you pick me up? I would have respected that. I said, okay, I understand that. So this guy living in his car for 9 months, wonderful, toodles to him, all of that good stuff. But what does he need the rest of the months? Yeah, he needs somebody else to pay the light bill, pay the garbage bill, pay the city, the taxes, pay the sewer, pay the HOA. You see the problem I have? Hey, I am giving. I will open my place up, okay, to a family member in need. But don't try to, rain. What is it they say? Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Okay. This isn't all being done by himself. So it's great that he's saving money. He's able to live in his car, but it's also done at the expense of other people maintaining what he does not wish to maintain himself. And that is a permanent residence. So I respect him that he says he's leeching off of people. I will tell you what, for me, it lasted about 2 dates. And I was like, nah, not interested in it.
9 months out of the year in my car and 3 months leaching and crashing at friends or family. So 9 times 1,800 is $16,200.
You don't have to be an economist to know that the middle class salary is now $100,000. In 2019, $40,000 to $50,000 would buy you a middle class life. In 2024, it's $100,000. Even if you look at my life, my wife and I bought a $400,000 home, which is the average home in America. We drive 2 Volkswagens, not BMWs. The payment total is $850. We do spend $1,000 a month on groceries. We eat healthy, whole foods. We make our coffee at home. We don't do Starbucks. We have a 401k, health insurance, car insurance, gas, cell phone. My wife does get her hair and nails done once a month. We go to date night every single Friday, but at like a local tavern or even Chili's for $100. And our bills, monthly bills, are $7,000 a month.
Okay. Oh, hold on.
And we have no credit cards, no student loans, and we don't have children. I can't imagine when people tell me that their daycare is $2,500 and their student loan is $500. I'm like, that would make our monthly bills $10,000. What?
Okay. Real quick thought here. Okay. 100K. Put in the comments if you think 100K is really the new requirement to live, or are we exaggerating? In other words, when we say it's 100K to live, is it really? Really? Or are we just exaggerating a bit? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on that. Share amongst yourselves in the comments. Now, his budget, Whole Foods, he says they eat Whole Foods. He doesn't say they shop at Whole Foods, but they eat Whole Foods. Okay. In other words, unprocessed. Whole Foods can be expensive. Okay. And he says they spend $1,000 a month in groceries. I think that could be lowered a bit. But on the other hand, I spend about $500 and that's for me. So guess $500 for the both of them probably isn't too bad. And I buy lettuce and, Greek yogurt, yada, yada, Oreo cookies, the golden cream ones. I just love those, the golden Oreos. Okay. So about $1,000 a month food budget. So I guess I can't really complain about that. Got to be fair. The cars, what Dave Ramsey would say, you have 2 cars, $800. That's too much car. That's about $400 each. Why isn't one of those cars paid off? One of them should be a clunker. So I'm thinking they're actually driving two pretty nice cars if they're paying $400 each. Let's see. Hair and nails. I think that it was $300 on the screen. I believe my screen's smaller, so I can't always remember. That's a ridiculous amount for hair and nails. But then again, I really can't throw stones. I spend about 150 a month on YouTube. So they can say, well, that's stupid. Hey, I got it. I got it. Okay. But we're looking at their budget, not mine. Okay. So hair and nails, $300. That's a lot of hair and nails. That's like a weekly or at least every other week trip and a really hefty tip. So I think that budget could probably be shifted a little bit. On the other hand, so we could look at my budget and say it could be shifted too. But I'll tell you when you know you're really screwed when you know there is no place lower to take your budget. And I'm talking like you've gotten rid of the iPhone and you've gone for an Android. By the way, I will never understand those of you that say you have something like, a $100, $200 a month cell phone bill. You must be paying for a cell phone. I have never spent more than $300 on a cell phone cash. Okay. I've never spent more than $300 on a cell phone. And my monthly service has never been more than $50, $55 a month. Ever. So I don't relate to people when they say things like, oh, I'm paying, $200, $300 for my cell phone. I don't understand that.
Here's another example of someone being forced out of their homes due to increasing rent prices and having to have all their belongings attached to their car lest they face a penalty from the city.
At first, I thought that was like fake, like maybe it was set up for like a display, but it's actually sitting on a city street and the driver's seat is completely clear, like somebody, clearly sits there. It's horrible.
Was told to go to school, get good grades, get a good education, right? I did that. At one point, I'm sitting at my job. I'm like, man, they lied to me. I'm like, this is supposed to be the American dream. Working 60, 70-hour work weeks. By the way, my wife is doing the same thing. And, every Sunday night I'm seeing this look on her face because as the sun begins to set, her face begins to drop. Because what?
Monday's getting closer.
Monday's getting closer, man. I got to go to work Monday morning.
Let me tell you something on a serious note. And I understand they were chuckling about, got to go to work on Monday morning. But I'm going to give you a serious note. When I was in deep mental health crisis, okay? It used to be so bad for me on Sunday nights, I would almost get ill. And, like you run a fever, like you have the symptoms or symptoms of being sick. And all I can say is, it's such a relief to not feel that anymore, to be happy about where I go to work. I mean, those of you who've ever seen the car chats with me, I'm happy to go to work. I'm happy to be with the people I work with. I love the people I work for. I respect, the people around me. And that was a hard fought prize in my case to get myself to this point. And I think what happens a lot is that people just kind of accept that you have to be miserable on Sunday nights. And we're just going to say Sunday because that's the typical, beginning of the work week on Monday, even though I'm aware that's not everybody's schedule. But I genuinely know what it's like to just dread going to work. I had one job when I lived in Portland, and it was so bad that when I got off work it was around 5:30, and I would drive home, I would have to pull over on the freeway and lie the seat back because I would start to get dizzy. And it was a doctor that explained to me, oh, it's because you're so stressed and you're so tense at work that when you get off work, you relax. And it was making me dizzy and I couldn't drive home. And home was probably 15 minutes from where I worked at. So I understand the symptoms of what it really is to be stressed out. Now we could, think back to that first TikToker and how she says she's stressed out and stuff. But part of me just genuinely does. I'm from what I've seen, I'm not ready to equate her situation to my genuine, true mental health situation. Not saying it's a competition, don't get me wrong, but there's a difference. I would have to know more about her situation to really find out, if she was just running to escape something that she didn't like, or if it was a true mental health situation. And when it's a true mental health situation, you get a sinking feeling on, like they're saying, Sunday nights. And it can start middle of the day and it just gets worse and worse as the evening comes in. And no one should have to live like that. But my question to you is, if that is you, what are you going to do to get yourself out of it? Because to get yourself out of that situation isn't going to come for free. It's not going to be handed to you. You're going to have to decide, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up so you can gain something that you really, really want? And I hate to say it, but running to escape isn't the answer. Instead, you need to actually map out a plan, map out a solution. But I feel so lucky at this age that I worked my way out of it. And it's taken years, decades to work my way out of it. And it's taken years and decades to keep myself out of it, to keep myself in that healthy zone. And that has a lot to do with why I didn't ever leave my school while I was dealing with PSLF, because I was in a good mental, place. When you are in a good mental place, I guarantee you, I promise you, you will not dread Sunday nights or whatever the night is before you have to go to work. It doesn't mean there's not stress on the job. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot of work to do. And it doesn't mean that there aren't sometimes conflicts. But what it does mean is overall, you feel very safe, so that when I go to bed on Sunday nights, the biggest thing I complain about on Sunday nights is, oh, gee, I got to watch the time when I'm at the gym. That's the biggest thing that I complain about. So on Monday morning, when I go to the gym, I got to watch the time and I can't sleep in. That's not a complaint about the job. But this young lady, that first lady, she's going to have to earn her way into getting whatever it is that's going to make her happy. She's going to have to fight for it.
Software engineers are living paycheck to paycheck. Here's how. In May of 2022, this was the median income for a software engineer, which increased to $132,000 in May of 2023, a total of 1%. Bear with me. In 2022 alone, we were seeing months where inflation was anywhere between 8.5 to 9.6%. And let's face it, most software engineers live in places like California, Washington, Texas, and New York. Software engineers in California making between $61,000 and $183,000 are considered middle class. And the median salary in California is $91,000, while the median home price is $787,000 at 7% interest. That means you would need to pay $6,099 a month just to pay for your housing. And that doesn't include things like eating out, going on vacation, transportation, and basically anything else you want to buy in your life. The math isn't mathing. Forget software engineers, no one can afford anything anymore.
That was an interesting thing to look at, because I think we just assume that software engineers are rich. I think we just assume doctors are rich, attorneys are rich. What's the one thing we've seen on the Dave Ramsey show that I do a lot of commentary to? What's the one thing we've seen? Oh man, doctors are in debt, doctors with addictions, whether it be gambling addictions, whatever, betting on the market. Okay. I think we just make those assumptions. And then we find out, no, they're not wealthy, not as wealthy as what we see in our head, as what we've been told. Now, to say something like teachers, they're broke. Nobody doubts that. Everybody's like, yeah, we know that. But when we think about software developers and stuff, I think the assumption is that they make a lot of money.
One paycheck gone in 3 swipes. Rent $1,800, groceries $300, gas $100, leftover $20 until next month.
This is $100 worth of groceries.
Check that out. We've all been there. Have you ever walked out of the grocery store, literally, and even $50 is like 3 items? Toilet paper, $30. Okay, that's to get the, sort of a big pack roll. Okay, toilet paper, $30, $10 for a couple gallons of orange juice. That's up to like 10 now. So now you're at $40 plus some tax here in Florida, and maybe a pack of eggs. There you go. There's $50. And for those of us that live alone, okay, and I'm very fortunate, I can buy the food that I need to buy. Yes, I complain about it like everybody else, but I'm going to be honest. I can afford the food that I need to get, not afford it lavishly. I ain't going down to the ritzy Whole Foods. I'm not going to Fresh Market. Okay. I'm shopping at Publix, Walmart, except I don't buy my meat products at Walmart. I can't handle buying meat products at Walmart, but I am fortunate. I'm able to get my stuff, but oftentimes I'll look at and I'll go, I almost feel selfish because I'm like, this is just for me and it cost me $100. So imagine if I was feeding other people.
$100 even. That's before taxes, $100 right here.
Really work at a job for like 25 plus years, only make like $18 or $20 an hour, and be complaining why I don't make no money. Nigga, it took you like 25 years to realize you ain't getting paid.
What he's basically saying is, why do people stick around at a job so long to say, you know, I'm not paid anything? And we know people like that. And you can tell those people, well, do something, change, do something. And it's like, no, they'll stay at the same job for forever and ever. You know why? Because it's easier than taking a risk and changing your life. It's easier than taking a risk and going, it might fail.
Think that your grocery prices are too high? Think again. This is the northernmost town in the United States where grocery prices look like this. You guys, I'm truly losing my mind right now. Shut up. Potato chips, $13.29. Apparently it's extremely normal for everyone to bring tons of food and different items. Like you can tell there's just stacks of boxes because it's just so hard to get stuff up here. Sometimes the freighters won't even come in and they will have weeks where they don't even have eggs and butter. So thankful for our grocery prices in the lower 48.
Y'all, I'm tired. I am so sinking tired. Like, I have no doubt in my mind right now that life is a trap. It's all one big trap. Like, maybe it's just living in Toronto, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's just life in general. Like, I just left my full-time salary job because as a social service worker, I make nothing. Which that's a whole other conversation of like how that makes sense at all. But I just wasn't making enough, but I was working very, very hard. And there was a lot of details at that job that meant that I couldn't necessarily work another job if I needed to. So I left. I started a new job, still in social service work, as a mental health support worker, and it's part-time. I'm still not making any money, but I was like, you know what, it's fine. I have a bunch of options for like side gigs. I'll just do some side gigs to supplement my income. But here's the thing, like I said, I am so exhausted from just existing at this point that, you know, picking up shifts at the side gigs takes everything in me. I can do it, but at the same time, it's like my mental health is getting affected by how tired I am and how many different jobs I have to juggle in order to literally just survive. And then, you know, you see all over TikTok and the internet of like, here's ways you make passive income, invest money, blah, 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 blah. Those all take work. Like, none of it is easy. None of it is really like making money in your sleep. Like, all of it takes so much work. And how am I supposed to balance that with my part-time job and all my other side gigs? And then, oh, there's the loans, right? Because they will really tell you, oh, you know, you need emergency money. You can't make your rent this month, whatever. Take out a loan. So you take out a loan, but then you're paying so much money back to them every month that you now never, ever have enough money for anything outside of necessities.
Do you want to live in a world where an artist can make a living making art? Yeah, of course you do. Well, here's the deal. Poor people, on average, do not spend money on original works of art. No, it's wealthy people that do that. So if you want to live in a world where an artist can make a living doing art, then you need to make sure that you are working and voting for a world where the majority of us have extra cash. Because right now, when we are getting nickeled and dimed and taxed out the wazoo, nobody's got any money left over for art. No, we're putting all that towards groceries. And our artists are gonna have to go work stocking the shelves at that grocery store. Because you see, art is the unnecessary necessity. We don't need it to survive, but we definitely need it to thrive. Do you want to live in a world where
I live in my car, and here's how much money I saved by not paying rent. My old apartment cost me $1,800 per month with utilities. I live 9 months out of the year in my car and 3 months leaching and crashing at friends or family, so 9 times $1,800 is $16,200.
You don't have to be an economist to know that the middle class salary is now $100,000. In 2019, $40,000 to $50,000 would buy you a middle class life. In 2024, it's $100,000. Even if you look at my life, my wife and I bought a $400,000 home, which is the average home in America. We drive 2 Volkswagens, not BMWs. The payment total is $850. We do spend $1,000 a month on groceries. We eat healthy, whole foods. We make our coffee at home. We don't do Starbucks. We have a 401k, health insurance, car insurance, gas, cell phone. My wife does get her hair and nails done once a month. We go to date night every single Friday, but at like a local tavern or even Chili's for $100. And our bills, monthly bills, are $7,000 a month. And we have no credit cards, no student loans, and we don't have children. I can't imagine when people tell me that their daycare is $2,500 and their student loan is $500. I'm like, that would make our monthly bills $10,000. What?
Here's another example of someone being forced out of their homes due to increasing rent prices and having to have all their belongings attached to their car lest they face a penalty from the city.
I was told to go to school, get good grades, get a good education, right? I did that. At one point, I'm sitting at my job. I'm like, man, they lied to me. I'm like, this is supposed to be the American dream? Working 60, 70-hour work weeks. By the way, my wife is doing the same thing. And, every Sunday night I'm seeing this look on her face because as the sun begins to set, her face begins to drop. Because what?
Monday's getting closer.
Monday's getting closer, man. I got to go to work Monday morning.
Software engineers are living paycheck to paycheck. Here's how. In May of 2022, this was the median income for a software engineer, which increased to $132,000 in May of 2023, a total of 1%. Bear with me. In 2022 alone, we were seeing months where inflation was anywhere between 8.5 to 9.6%. And let's face it, most software engineers live in places like California, Washington, Texas, and New York. Software engineers in California making between $61,000 and $183,000 are considered middle class. And the median salary in California is $91,000, while the median home price is $787,000 at 7% interest. That means you would need to pay $6,099 a month just to pay for your housing. And that doesn't include things like eating out, going on vacation, transportation, and basically anything else you want to buy in your life. The math isn't mathing. Forget software engineers, no one can afford anything anymore.
One paycheck gone in 3 swipes. Rent $1,800, groceries $300, gas $100, leftover $20 until next month.
This is $100 worth of groceries. $100 even. That's before taxes. $100 right here.
Really work at a job for like 25 plus years and only make like $18 to $20 an hour and be complaining why I don't make no money. Nigga, it took you like 25 years to realize you ain't getting paid.
Think that your grocery prices are too high? Think again. This is the northernmost town in the United States where grocery prices look like this. You guys, I'm truly losing my mind right now. Shut up. Potato chips, $13.29. Apparently it's extremely normal for everyone to bring tons of food and different items. Like you can tell there's just stacks of boxes because it's just so hard to get stuff up here. Sometimes the freighters won't even come in and they will have weeks where they don't even have eggs and butter. So thankful for our grocery prices in the lower 48.